Okay, thank you. Welcome. uh, um, and for this show, I'm going to critique a YouTube video. Um, it's Frank Turek's responses to atheist memes. Um, Let me get it up and running here. And get it up. Hope you can see it. All right, it's looking good. All right, so I'm going to play the video, and it's only 16 minutes long, so I'm going to probably play it in its entirety, and I'll just pause it, at different points when I want to make comments. So let's get started. So yeah, this is whose channel is this? Give him credit. This is Whaddo You Meme channel. I've seen this apologist before, and I guess you got Frank Turek, and there's going to respond to different memes, and I'm going to respond to Frank's responses. So let me get started. So here we go.
I'm sitting here with Dr. Frank Turek.
Hey, John.
How you doing, man?
Man, I'm good. What's going on?
Good, brother. So, hey, man, I got some memes for you.
Memes.
Yeah, but I got to warn you up front that these are some of the top atheist memes online, you know? So
I better go, man.
All right, so you ready to get roasted?
Let's go. Let's do it.
All right, man.
So I'm going to speed up the time a little. I'm going to speed it at a 1 1/4 speed, just to make it go faster. So hopefully it'll make it run faster. So if it's too fast, I'll slow it down, but I think we should be good. So here we go.
First one says, it's actually a quote from Richard Dawkins. It says, "Be thankful that you have a life and forsake your vain and presumptuous desire for a second one."
Wow, look at that, man. Who am I thanking, by the way? Be thankful. Who am I thanking? Because, there's a lot going on now with Black Lives Matter, and people are saying all lives matter, and that gets you canceled and all this. According to atheists, no lives matter,
Exactly,
right? Because there's no real purpose or meaning to life. And so this thing is filled with all sorts of moral condemnation.
Okay, you said that, in the atheist worldview, that there's no real meaning or purpose in life. We hear that a lot from apologists, and I think it's really short-sighted. Well, what they mean when they say that is there's no everlasting meaning, there's no permanent meaning, there's no permanent purpose, and so forth. And I will grant them that, because obviously, in my worldview, life is over when you die, obviously. But to say that there's no meaning, no purpose, I don't think that's correct. Life gives you purpose. Frank Turek and Christian apologists have it totally in reverse. They think purpose comes first and then life. Rather, you have life first, and through our lives and through the situations we find ourselves in, that gives us meaning and purpose. So Dan Barker has a good saying. He's saying that we don't have a purpose-driven life, but rather we have a life-driven purpose. So life gives us purposes, and when our lives are up, obviously, there's no more meaning and purpose, but that's just the way it is, and that's something that we're willing to accept. But to say that in atheist worldview, there's no right or wrong, there's no meaning, there's no purpose, that's short-sighted. And I respond back: how does a life with God give you purpose and meaning? God just made you to serve Him. Is that the purpose? Is that why He created you? Just to be His, slave, I guess. I mean, I guess you could live that way if you want. But again, and what purpose does God have? Was God made for a purpose? Well, no, God wasn't made, right? He's an eternal being, so he wasn't made. But notice that where God's life came first, and then He created purposes. Same thing can be said about us. Our lives come first, and then we have purposes based on our nature and the world we find us in. So I don't see how the Christian worldview really answers this question as well. So I'll go forward.
Condemnation.
Yeah.
That you're vain. Is it wrong to be vain? Who said? Let's suppose I am vain. Does that make why would it be wrong if there's what's the moral standard that makes it wrong? Presumptuous. I'm presuming some.
So again, we hear this time and time again that atheists have no moral standards. We have nothing to base morality on. This is purely false. There's many different moral theories you can choose from that are non-theistic. There's virtue ethics, utilitarianism. There's Kant's categorical imperative, and so forth. There's many moral theories that one can subscribe to. So it's just false. My basis for morality is what is conducive to the flourishing of sentient beings. Obviously, humans takes priority over that simply because I'm a human. So it's just simply false to say that atheists have no moral basis to choose from. We can't moral reason at all. No, obviously we're able to do moral reasoning, and that's based on what is best, right? What is best for us? What's best for the common good? And I think Christians do the same thing. Christians want to go to heaven, right? They want to flourish. It's the same thing, really. We just don't believe there's some deity who's going to punish us if we don't bow down to him. So well as that, but they're seeking the same well-being and well-lived life, just like we do. They just have a more bloated ontology that they have to deal with.
Something. No, I think I have evidence that there's a second life. And it's not just a desire. I think there's actually evidence out there. So
I'd like to hear that evidence. Near-death experiences. I haven't seen any good evidence. My reason to think that there's no afterlife is that when we damage our eyes, we no longer see. When we damage our ears, we no longer hear. Say same things with our nose and our mouth and so forth. And if we damage our brain, we damage the way we think and so forth. And if we damage our bodies enough, all those functions cease. But according to Christians, which I think most are substance dualists, they think when you die, somehow all that comes back. It's like, well, why do we need our physical organs at all? If we're really just a ghost in a machine, why do we even need this physical body? It seems such a waste. I know some Christians believe that your soul leaves your body, but you really won't be conscious again until you're resurrected, you're physically resurrected, and then you kind of go back. But what do you do in the meantime? You sit in sleep, I guess, and then you wake up thousands of years later when you're resurrected. Unfortunately, there's no consistent message of the afterlife in the Bible. There's many different viewpoints, and it's very confused. I don't think they offer any evidence at all, and their claims about the afterlife are very inconsistent with each other and conflicting between each other.
So I would, now obviously, with all due respect to Richard Dawkins, it's just a statement. I don't know what comes before or after. But who? The Atheist Alliance of America put this out. Okay.
Yeah. So what makes it vain and presumptuous? Just
you can manage your team's work easily with
commercial.
Monday.com.
Sorry about that.
Just go to Monday.com and start tracking.
All
right, keep on going.
Desire for a second one, even if that was the case, right? Like if you just wanted to I mean, I'm thinking from this perspective, what makes it actually vain and presumptuous on that view?
And why would it be wrong to be vain?
Yeah.
Even if you're suggesting that there's some sort of moral decadence or there's a moral imperfection in being vain. Not according to atheism, because there is no objective morality if atheism is true.
Who says there's objective morality under Christianity? Seems pretty subjective to me. If morality is based on the mind of God, that's what it means to be subjective. On someone's personal beliefs. Someone's it's mind dependent. Something objective is mind independent. It's based on the relevant facts, around that. So perhaps, if God's your standard, okay, then you pick that, and then from there you can basically pick objective facts, perhaps off of that, wherever God dictates to you. But we can do the same. We can, if our standard is that what is good is conducive to a well-lived life, to flourishing, we're able to establish, objective facts off of that standard. So, Christians constantly throw out, without God, everything's subjective. Right? It's no less subjective than thinking that your morals come from some God. So, I'm going to check the volume on the live feed just to make sure how it sounds. Again, this is my very first time doing this, so I want to make sure it's good. So hold on here.
All right, we got to try another one. Right. Get you in this next one. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Someone says, "How do you explain the universe? God did it. Rainbows.
Let's make sure
God did it.
quick.
Bananas. God did it. Millions of innocent children dying. God did. Whoa, you almost got me there.
Oh, look at that.
That's clever.
Okay, yeah, that is clever, actually.
Okay.
Let's take the creation of the universe, which is how it starts. How do you explain the universe? God did it.
Yeah.
It's not just that we lack a natural explanation.
Okay, I think it sounds good. Can you guys hear the video okay?
Is positive, empirically verifiable evidence for a spaceless, timeless, immaterial, powerful, personal, intelligent being. Because if space-time and matter had a beginning, which is what even atheists admit, then whatever created space-time and matter can't be made of space-time and matter. It must be spaceless, timeless, immaterial, powerful, personal to create the universe out of nothing, because in order to create, you have to make a choice, and only persons can make choices. The cause would also have to be intelligent in order to make a choice.
All right, here he's parroting William Lane Craig. This is, standard Kalam cosmological argument. My view is, the universe could have a beginning. I mean, I think Craig. I thought Sean Carroll did quite well against Craig with his in his debate with the Kalam. If you haven't seen that, I would check it out. But I thought Sean Carroll did quite well against Craig, he pointed out that current theories about the universe is that it is internal. So if that's the case, then the universe was never created. But if it was created, if it did have a beginning and it was created, who says it just didn't come from some quantum realm or something? I don't see why it has to come from a person. Things form naturally without agency. That we observe, in nature. So I see no reason why the universe couldn't do it. So this is a standard parroting of Craig. So keep on going.
So it's not a God of the gaps argument. In fact, I was at University of Michigan once, and some guy said to me, got up to the microphone, and he said, "Oh, this cosmological argument is a God of the gaps argument." He said, "If you give science more time, we're going to find a natural cause for all of nature."
Yeah.
And I said, first of all, John, that sounds a lot like faith.
Yeah.
Give science more time.
Yeah.
It's a faith position. But secondly,
I wonder if he has any faith positions. I think he has quite a few faith positions. Is faith bad? I wonder.
When you say, give science more time, we'll find a natural cause for all of nature, I said, in principle, there's no way to find a natural cause for all of nature. It must be something that transcends nature, that brought nature into existence. I said, for you to say that would be like me saying, if you just give me more time, I'll figure out one day that I gave birth to my own mother. Right? It can't happen in principle. If nature had a beginning, whatever created nature must transcend nature.
Be supernatural. Not to mention that science of the gaps, right?
Right.
Yep. All right. Next one.
Oops.
It says, "Hey Christians, do you believe in wizards? No. Is it because they do magic?"
Let me back up. Let me say something about that. I think it's equivocating there. he's equivocating the universe for nature. The universe perhaps could have a beginning, but that doesn't mean nature itself has a beginning. Think of everything that exists. Everything that exists as an identity and having a nature. Even their God, even their God has an identity and a certain nature. So there could be some quantum nature, for example, or just some different form of reality that has a nature that always existed, which our physical universe as we know it came from. So I think it's wrong for him to say nature. We're talking about the universe here. Everything has a nature. So nature didn't come into being because God has a nature. So it'd be wrong for him to say that. We're talking about the physical universe as we know it, as we observe it came into being. If that's the case, again, it could be a case that everything that exists has existed eternally, and it's just changing forms. It's just evolving from one state into another. So, okay, here we go. On to the next meme.
Magic isn't real? Ironic, don't you think? I'll read it again.
I don't know if I get that, actually. That's not as clear as it could be. Maybe there's some twist to this. What do you think? What do you think it's saying?
Yeah, because I was thinking the same thing. I think what he's probably trying to say is we don't believe in wizards because they do magic, but we believe in God because he does magic. That's what it sounds like.
Okay,
right?
maybe that's it.
I mean, I don't know what else it could be. But
yeah, okay, but you see, that's just a failure to distinguish between one of 6 different unusual events. 2 of the unusual events, one of them is magic, which is human sleight of hand, and the true supernatural event is a miracle where God intervenes directly in the space-time continuum to overpower a natural law. God can do that because he created the space-time continuum and can intervene at any time he wants. In fact, we can overpower natural laws to a certain extent. Like right here, I'm overpowering gravity by holding up my iPhone. Now,
he's not violating any natural law by picking up that iPhone. Gravity is not being suspended there. Everything he's doing, falls into the realm of natural law. So he's not defying natural law. He's just applying a force which negates the effects of gravity, but gravity is still pulling it down, right? He's just applying a opposite force. So I think he's kind of confused right there.
If I decide not to hold it anymore, it'll pull it to the ground. If I can overpower natural law, can the being that created and sustains natural laws overpower these laws? Of course. So magic is something that's human sleight of hand. It's an illusion. Whereas a miracle is when God, outside the universe, directly intervenes inside the universe to overpower natural law, something that wouldn't happen if nature.
Do we really have any evidence for any miracles? I like to see any miracle.
Nature is left to itself. And by the way, nature must be driven by these consistent, precise natural laws, and that must be the way things normally happen, because we wouldn't be able to identify a miracle if we didn't have the backdrop of regular events driven by natural laws. Miracles are designed to be a special event by the hand of God. We couldn't recognize them if we didn't have the backdrop of natural laws, which did things.
Right, and we don't need a God for that. We don't need a God for the uniformity of nature and for nature to work, as expected. And if God can create miracles, how do we know anything that happens isn't the hand of God? In fact, Calvinists believe. I don't think Frank Turek is a Calvinist. I never heard him say one way or the other. The way he talks, he doesn't sound like a Calvinist. But Calvinists believe that everything is foreordained by God. But I don't think he has much of a point here. We think it's magic because these are fantastical stories, and if we're going to believe these mythical stories, why not believe all the magical stories from other myths at all? I think that's what this meme is all about. If those other stories are fake, why should we believe that the stories within the Bible are true if they're as fantastical as all the other ones?
The same way over and over again.
Sounds good. Yeah. And I was trying to think about, it seems like they're saying the reason you believe in wizards is because of magic, and the reason you believe in God is because of magic. But that's not why we believe in God, right?
No.
Because of magic.
No, we are believing in God because he's left effects behind that are best explained by a cause, a supernatural cause outside the universe.
That's right. All right, next one.
Oh, another commercial. Sorry about that.
To try Monday.com.
How much I can
Monday.com is a
do.
platform to track.
All right, here we go.
Everyone is posting about coronavirus, and I'm just over here wondering, where is the God of the Bible and your Jesus? What do you say about that?
Well, it's really a question about if God, why evil? And actually, the Christian worldview is the only worldview that can really adequately answer evil.
What do you say?
Again, we hear this over and over again, that there's no standard of good and evil, without God. And he said only the Christian worldview. Turek's a pretend presuppositionalist. He kind of borrows from it, but he's not really that schooled in it. But he'll borrow the phrases from presuppositionalists, and this is one example. But notice with this coronavirus, the only way we can defeat this coronavirus is through human effort. It's through science and human effort. Where is Jesus in all of this? I think the best way to understand it is Jesus wants this to happen. If he didn't want it to happen, he could stop it, but he's not. Again, this is basic problem of evil.
Say that, Frank.
Because evil only exists if good exists, and good only exists if God exists.
Good only exists if God exists. Again, nonsense. And I argued in the past that God doesn't live up to his own standard of good. He does not live up. He's supposed to be all loving, and he doesn't live up to his own standard of love. But no, we can easily decide what is good without some God. And good for whom? When you hear what is this good for, or what is good? You should always ask, good for what? And really, the underlying answer to that is good for us, good for our well-being, good for our flourishing. So again, it also ultimately comes down to that. Again, we don't need God to decide what is good and evil.
Because evil is a lack in a good thing. Evil is like cancer. If you take all the cancer out of a good body, you've got a better body. If you take all the body out of the cancer, you've got nothing. It doesn't exist on its own. Yet this meme is.
You can reverse that. You can say good is the lack of evil. That's purely subjective right there.
Implying that the coronavirus is somehow evil. Well, if it's evil because it takes out people, for example, then you're implying that there's a true purpose to life and that people are inherently valuable. Those things don't work on atheism.
Again, how exactly does that work under Christianity? The Christian God has no problem at all destroying creatures that are made in his own image. If you believe in the fictional Noah's Ark story, he wipes out the whole entire race and all the animals with it, except for 8 humans. So this God has no problem destroying, his image bearers. But again, he says this over and over again. It's just nonsense.
There is no purpose to life, and people aren't inherently valuable because there is no God. We're just overgrown machines.
Again, how do we have those things with God?
Just moist robots. There is no real true purpose. So it's a valid question to ask, okay,
what would be true purpose? Again, we don't have a purpose-driven life. We have life-driven purpose. You have to have life first. And through the life we have comes purpose.
Why does God allow certain evils to occur? But to say there is no God because certain evils occur doesn't work, because it wouldn't even be evil unless there was a standard of good, i.e. unless God exists. And so we cover this in the book Stealing from God if you want to go further.
No, again, how do they define good? They define good at what comports to God's nature. So so basically what they're saying is what is good, what is good is God's nature, and what is God's nature is what is good. So you're saying God is God. It's a meaningless tautology. It doesn't define good at all. You say God is good, And good is defined as what comports to God's nature. So you substitute good for God's nature. You say God is God's nature. So God is God. It's meaningless.
All right. Sounds good. Next one. This one says, question, prove that God doesn't exist. That's a tough one. Show me how it's done by proving Zeus and Apollo don't exist, and I'll use your method.
Yeah, I would say that this word prove needs to be defined. Because if you're going to say with absolute certainty God doesn't exist, nobody could do that, quite obviously. Even Richard Dawkins, to his credit, admits, okay, on a scale of 1 to 7, where 1 meaning I'm a theist and 7 mean I'm an atheist and I know 100% certain, he said I'm a 6.5. Okay, he knows that you can't completely disprove God, or you can't completely say you can't even completely disprove Zeus. We're operating on probability here. So it's a probability argument. And it would be completely presumptuous to say that I can prove that no God exists. In fact, to say that to 100% certainty, you'd have to have all knowledge. You'd have to be God, right? In order to do that.
But and you can prove some concept.
Yeah, there's no way to prove that there isn't some vague entity X hiding behind some rock somewhere, in the ether out there. So, he's right. Yeah, you don't have to have absolute proof for deductive argument. So so he's right there. But we can have reasons to think that this particular God does not exist. And yeah, I think the argument from evil is a good argument among all the others. And again, I did a full series of why I'm not a Christian. I give all my reasons there.
Of God don't exist, right? And that's what you try to do. If you try to find a logical contradiction in between the attributes of some God, you can try to prove something like that can exist, but you can't prove that no God exists.
And the other thing,
right, that's a good point. So yeah, it's hard to prove that some vague God doesn't exist, some deistic God. But if you find conflicts within the way the God of the Bible is described, then you can determine that God does not exist. And I think we have done that. Again, God's supposed to be love, but he doesn't comport to his own definition of love. And he's supposed to do all these things within history, but we discover there's no evidence or counter evidence that those things in history never happened. So we can cross this Christian God off the list as far as existing and creating universe and so forth.
I want to say is atheists frequently will say things like, I just go one God further than you. You don't believe in Zeus, Ra, and all. Well, Zeus and Ra and Thor, these are all created beings inside the universe, where Yahweh is the uncreated eternal being outside the universe that, if Zeus, Ra, and Thor existed, would be created and sustained by Yahweh.
No. I mean, he's trying to combine paradigms here. It's like saying, what happens if the DC universe, got together with Marvel? Who would win? Could Superman defeat Thor and so forth? In the Greek mythos, Zeus and Apollo are they're sons of other gods. I think Zeus, I believe, is the son of Kronos, I think. And I think the initial gods in the Greek mythos, the initial gods, I think the Titans, I believe. It's been a while. They came out of the chaotic waters. So at the beginning there was chaos, and then out of chaos became those first beings. But we have something similar in the Bible in Genesis 1. We have God to begin with, but he creates the heavens and the earth, the dry land and the sky, out of the chaotic waters, just like in the Greek myth. And if you study Genesis 1, nowhere does Yahweh create these waters. They're primordial and they always existed. And that's like a lot of the other creation myths that we see. The gods brought order out of the pre-existing chaos. So it's the same thing, but it's a mistake to kind of compare different mythos with each other. It's saying, my gods can beat up, your gods. No, they're separate paradigms.
A completely different category. These Greek gods or these mythological gods are inside the universe. They're finite creatures. The God of the Bible is the ground of everything.
Yeah, is Yahweh really outside the universe? That's later Christian theology. But if you read the Old Testament, God is in the third heaven, or in the seventh heaven, but they had different layers. And you'll read verses like the firmament is God's footstool. So in that picture, God's not outside the universe; He's up on the clouds. He's up on top of the firmament. So just the way you could say these Greek gods are, up on Mount Olympus, something like that. So it's just it's disingenuous of Turek to say that. He's not being charitable at all. And this is the sort of view you hear from Christians too, especially evangelicals. They get the idea of other gods from other religions. Well, I have to make sense of them within my worldview. So in my worldview, those things might exist, but they're demons. And anything outside of my religious paradigm is evil. So you get crazy ideas like Barney, the purple dinosaur, is satanic. And other cultures are satanic. Anything outside of my evangelical Christian culture is evil. You'll hear people like Matt Slick claiming like yoga is satanic, and good Christians should practice yoga. Because why? Because it's not within my worldview. It comes from a different culture. So a lot of bigotry and closed-mindedness within this Christian culture. Not all, but in the evangelical culture there is.
That exists.
All right, man, you're doing all right. So we're gonna have to step it up. All right,
stepping it up.
Here comes the heat. Woo. All right, this is a quote from John McCarthy. Not sure who he is.
Not John MacArthur. John McCarthy.
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
Good. Go ahead.
It says, an atheist doesn't have to be someone who thinks that he has proof that there can't be a God. He only has to be someone who believes that the evidence on the God question is at a similar level to the evidence on the werewolf question.
Yep, another commercial.
Solstice Conference delivers room system capabilities to support every.
Here we go.
Well, that's just an ignorant statement. Because when we're talking about God, as we just mentioned, we're not talking about a being like a werewolf inside the universe. We're talking about the creator that's outside the universe, that created and sustains the universe. So it's, again, this would be.
Yeah, but this God of theirs is part of history. It interacts with the universe. He's active in it. So we should be able to find evidence for these things that supposedly this God did. You have a story about how he created the universe, but when you look at it, that's not how we view the universe. The universe isn't flat with a firmament dome over it. Apparently, God freed the Israelites out of Egypt, through the Exodus, but we have no evidence that the Exodus happened. We have counter evidence that it actually happened, and an overwhelming majority of archaeologists and scholars believe the Exodus never happened. So again, the absence of evidence is evidence of absence, where you should expect evidence. So again, we don't have any evidence for werewolves. So we're warranted in not believing in werewolves. And we have evidence that these things that Christians claim the Bible God did, there's no evidence for that. We have counter evidence that those things never happened. So we're warranted in believing that this Christian God doesn't exist either.
Like a superhero kind of God that he's talking about here. We're not talking about that.
Yeah.
So this is just an ignorant question. It would be like I remember Ed Feser, who wrote that great book, The Last Superstition, Catholic philosopher, great book that goes in a polemic way against the new atheists. he says about people like Christopher Hitchens and Richard Dawkins, you know, these people say there's absolutely no evidence for God, just except the thousands and thousands of pages that have been written to demonstrate that there really is a God.
Yeah.
Is it the case that there's possibly there's no evidence?
Why do we need these thousands of pages? It should be obvious. If God exists, it should be obvious, and he could make it obvious. But, evidently that's not the case.
Evidence for God out there, like Richard Dawkins seems to indicate? Or is it possible that Richard Dawkins just doesn't know what the blank he's talking about?
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
because he hasn't really read Aquinas. He hasn't really read Augustine. He hasn't really read any of even the modern philosophers that they haven't read William Lane Craig or anybody else, Ed Feser, or any of these people who are given metaphysical demonstration. Ed Feser in particular, his 5 proofs of the existence of God. I submit to you, no atheist no new atheist has probably even read that book or cares to read it.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. There's a presupposition too that all evidence has to be something like some sort of scientific evidence.
Right. Yet to do science, you need metaphysical principles underneath that.
Yeah.
In order to even do science.
That's right.
Yeah, that's fine. But again, this God has interacted in history, so we should be able to find evidence for those events in history, and we don't find it.
All right. Mm-hmm. And also on this meme, it seems like what they're trying to say is that there's no evidence for the werewolf, just like there's no evidence for God. But of course, that's not true. So what would you say to that if they say the same amount of evidence we have for werewolves is the same amount of evidence we have for God?
Well, I would say that's just not the case. How much time do you have? I would also say this: when people say there's no evidence for God, we could say, John, we're trained by a guy like Greg Koch, who says to always ask, what do you mean by that? You could.
Yeah, we have mythical stories about werewolves, and we have mythical stories about their God, and the events attributed to them.
Ask that question. What do you mean by evidence? I think when people say there's no evidence for God, though, I like to ask this: why is there evidence for anything?
Yeah.
I mean, why is there evidence that if we take 2 parts hydrogen and 1 part oxygen, we're going to get water? We got it yesterday. We'll get it today. We'll probably get it tomorrow, because this is an orderly world, and we have minds that are designed in order to discover truths about the orderly world and then draw conclusions about these things. What best explains that? Materialism, or the fact that if there's order in the world, there must be an orderer?
Yeah, we hear this before. Who says the default state is chaos, or the default state is nothingness? We need a God to create order. Why can't nature? Why can't the universe, through its own properties, have order itself? The universe has orderly properties. You don't need a God to create order out of chaos. And who says chaos was the initial state? We have an expansion of the universe with the Big Bang, but that's not necessarily an explosion, and it's going to some sort of it's expanding based on its own properties. So this idea is, you have to have a God to sustain the order of the universe. I don't think that's necessary.
That if we have this mind to ascertain truths and draw evidence about the real world from these truths.
Another commercial.
That there must be a great mind out there that created our minds with the ability to do this. It seems better explained by theism, certainly, than atheism.
All right.
How's it explained?
Right, man.
How's it explained? Can you explain the mind of God? Where did the mind of God come from? Oh, it always existed? Well, why can't the universe have the potential to create our minds? They didn't solve anything. They didn't, Frank Turek didn't answer anything. The idea is, how do you explain our minds? And he appeals to another mind. That's not an answer. You just doubled the problem. Not only have to explain our minds, but now you need to explain God's mind. So that's no answer. It's a pseudo explanation.
And see how you do. All right. This one says, it's a picture of Jesus that says, let me in. The
Mhm.
person says, why? So I can save you from what? From what I'm going to do to you if you don't let me in.
Yeah, that's,
In other words, he's saying send them to hell.
yeah, send them to hell. Well, people don't,
Yeah.
people make their own choices. I always say this when people say, well, will God send me to hell just because I don't believe in Jesus? I say, no, you don't go to hell because you don't believe in Jesus. You go to hell because you've sinned. Now, maybe you could prevent going to hell by accepting what Jesus has done. You can do that.
Yeah.
But it would be like saying, do you go to the doctor or do you die because you don't go to the doctor, or do you die because you have a disease? You die because you have a disease. Now, maybe you could prevent dying if you had a disease by going to the doctor, just like you could prevent eternal death by going to the great doctor, Jesus. But the reason you're dying is not because you didn't go to the doctor. The reason you're dying is because you have a disease. And
This is a bad analogy, the doctor. I don't see anywhere in the Hippocratic Oath where the doctor will give you his wrath, will punish you, where if you don't believe in the doctor, he will actively send you to hell. He will actively give you eternal conscious torment. Nowhere in the Hippocratic Oath it says that. Who made this disease? God made the disease. He created the universe and foreordained that humans would fall, and and we're not choosing. All those idea, C.S. Lewis said the same thing, that that hell's doors are locked from the inside. That's false. No one chooses to go to hell. No one wants to suffer. This God is actively sending us there. That's his punishment for us. And it seems like sin is the default state, right? Everyone's a sinner. So sin is not the standard in which we go to hell. If that was the standard, then everyone would go to hell because everyone's a sinner. No. What determines who goes to hell is God himself, of who he saves. This is particularly true in Calvinist theology. In Calvinist theology, all humans are totally depraved, and they don't even have the ability to choose God. God has to intervene and regenerate you, and make you a new creation. Looks like my lighting's bad. I noticed because of the light in the back window. So I noticed I have my head in front of the window. The lighting's better. So I'm going to move over some. But no. The doctor analogy, I think, fails, because no doctor is sending you, is punishing you, but this divine dictator is. So, a better analogy is what this meme says. I think this meme is accurate. If you don't love me, I'm going to torture you. That's what it boils down to. I think Turek's just flat out wrong here. It's like it's like Jesus isn't doing anything. No, he's responsible for it all. And also, are you going to go to a doctor if you have a disease? Are you going to go to a doctor, or are you going to go to a witch doctor? A witch doctor, obviously we discovered is a fraud, that they really can't cure you. And that's what skeptics of Christianity view this religion. They don't view Jesus as a great doctor. They view this religion as witch doctor. It's on the same level as voodoo, or astrology, or crystals. All the tarot card reading and so forth. So we don't believe that that Christianity will cure us of anything. So it's not, Jesus isn't a doctor; he's a witch doctor, as far as I'm concerned.
All of us have a disease. And what Jesus has come to do is to take that disease away from us. If you don't want him to do that, that's fine. He'll respect your free will. God will not force you into heaven against your will.
Oh, I don't have to believe that that medicine will cure me for it to cure me. I don't have to. It's not it's not a placebo. If I'm injected with the flu vaccine, that'll prevent me from getting the flu. I don't have to believe in the flu vaccine. Someone could shoot me with the flu vaccine in my sleep, right? I don't have to be aware of it. I don't have to believe in it. It'll objectively cure me of the disease on its own. But in Christianity, Jesus doesn't save you. It's your belief in Jesus that saves you. It basically boils down to joining the Jesus team. It's like joining a political party. Join the right side, and if you join the right side, you'll be rewarded. And if you don't join the right side, well, you're going to be destroyed.
Yep, that's right. All right, well, that's the best that I had, man. I searched high and low. That's the best that I can find.
Hey, can I say one other thing about this?
Go ahead.
This also implies a moral standard, this meme, right? That, let's say God even does that, what they're saying. By what standard are they judging God for doing that?
We can judge God by his own standard. According to the Bible, he wants what's best for his creation. And is he making the effort to do that? No. Is he living up to his own standard of love? No. So we can offer an internal critique against Christianity and show how it fails. But again, I can rely on my own standard as well. Again, my standard is what's best for the common good and what's best for the flourishing of sentient beings.
Where are they getting this standard from? Because this is implying that it would be wrong for God to send somebody to a place of torment.
Would a loving father do that? I guess we're not his children. I guess only the the chosen few, his elect, are his children, and the rest of his creation are damned to hell. For God's glory.
Just because they don't believe in Jesus. Who said that's wrong? You said, is that really wrong, or is that just your opinion? Because
is it your opinion that God exists and God is the standard of goodness?
if you're not appealing to a standard outside yourself, that's all it is, just your opinion.
And what if it's their opinion?
We didn't create our nature. We didn't create the environment we find ourselves in, and those are the things that determine what's good and evil. So it is outside of us.
Well, that's just your opinion. You don't like it, right? It's not really wrong because there's no standard by which you could say it's really wrong. It's just a preference you don't like. Well, suppose I do like it, or suppose Jesus does like it. Now, he's not doing this, don't get me wrong, but I'm saying the meme is implying a moral standard that Jesus doesn't meet because it's actually created.
Yeah. Jesus does not meet the Bible's own standard.
A straw man, actually. This isn't the way it happens, but still, even if you were right about it, it's just a preference for you if you don't have a God to be the standard of objective right and wrong, or objective.
Again, how can any person serve as an objective standard? You might as well just pick any dictator. Saddam Hussein, whatever he says, is the standard, or Donald Trump, or any dictator, can serve that. How is that any more objective than any other moral theory?
So now I think this is actually important because what I noticed online is that all of the new arguments, for the most part, from the atheists that are online, are all moral objections. And
Yes.
one way or another, they're saying God is mean and God is bad, or religious people are mean and religious people are bad.
Right, right.
Yeah. And so what do you say? I mean, you've already kind of covered it, but what are your kind of thoughts on that?
Well, I always ask them, by what moral standard are you judging this Christian
By your standard.
doctrine to be wrong, or this behavior of the God of the Old Testament to be wrong, or the apparent behavior of Jesus to be wrong? See, what you can say is, look, I believe in God, but the God of the Bible isn't the true God. That's a fair way of dealing with it. You can say that because then you still have an objective moral standard. The only problem is if you try that.
Again, how is that an objective moral standard? Any more than anything else?
Then you have to deal with all the evidence that Jesus rose from the dead, because if Jesus really.
The minimal facts argument. There are no minimal facts. They're all part of the gospel narrative, which is a fictional narrative. So, I think we can deal with these, evidence for the resurrection very easy. And again, even if Jesus was resurrected, that doesn't mean all the other things around it, around your theology is true. There's been other stories of people getting resurrected. It doesn't mean they're God or all the beliefs, all the dogma of your religion is true.
Rose from the dead, then he is God.
Easily manage your team's work with Monday.com. Just go to Monday.com and get started by.
And whatever he teaches is true. Look, I just have a personal policy. If somebody rises from the dead, I just trust whatever the guy says. All right.
All right. It would be great if we actually said that. Wouldn't it be great if Jesus actually showed himself to Pilate or the Sanhedrin or Caesar? It'd be great if he showed himself to Augustus. Hey, why not do a tour instead of having evangelical preachers going around in their tent revivals? Why doesn't the actual Jesus come around? Why don't they have? Why doesn't Yahweh offer a State of the Universe address? Just the way the president offers a State of Union address. Why doesn't God offer a State of the Universe address? Why doesn't he offer a parade in the sky with angels playing trumpets and so forth? If that happened, everyone would believe. It would be evidence. It'd be just like believing in the birds. Birds. We notice these birds. Defying the laws of gravity, so to speak, flying around. Leaving their droppings on our car hoods and so forth. No one doubts that birds live. It'd be much easier for Jesus and Yahweh to do the same.
Right? So that's the problem for somebody who says the God of the Bible isn't the true God. You've got to deal with Jesus and all the evidence that he rose from the dead. And I think it's quite strong, as you know, John.
No, I think it's weak. Again, Robert M. Price makes a good point, saying, if Jesus didn't rise from the dead, how do you explain the empty tomb? That's like saying, well, if the Emerald City of Oz didn't exist, where does the yellow brick road lead to? It's all part of the story. It's all part of the narrative. We can see that the gospel narratives are written for theological reasons. Each gospel embellishes the one it borrowed off of to create its narrative. The earliest sources we have is the Pauline epistles, and Paul never knew the historical Jesus. He describes his seeing Jesus more as a spiritual event. Nowhere he actually says he saw Jesus in the flesh. That's never. He compares his seeing Jesus just like the 12 and so forth. What apologists try to do is they try to combine the facts in the Pauline epistles, with the facts in the Gospels and pretend that they're one and the same. That's a mistake. They're not the same. They think, well, we can't have mass hallucinations. You're telling me when Thomas felt Jesus's body that he was hallucinating that? No, we're not saying that the events in the Gospels were hallucinations. We're saying those are fictions. But seeing visions of Jesus, that's something entirely different, and that can be all in your head.
Just about as well as I do. It's very strong.
All right. Well, hey man, so thank you for coming on. But the last question I have is, the next time that someone shows you one of these dope atheist memes and tells you that it's going to debunk your faith, what are you going to say?
I'm going to say, what do you mean?
Yeah, I'd love to talk to Frank Turek. One of Frank Turek's favorite arguments, a lot of people are borrowing it, is C.S. Lewis's argument from reason. He'll say, if atheism is true, we're nothing but moist robots, and so forth. If materialism is true, we're nothing but moist robots, and that's been well refuted. When C.S. Lewis made the claim in his book Miracles, it's in the 3rd chapter. I'm actually going to do an upcoming video dealing with the argument of reason, but Frank Turek likes to use that a lot. But there's nothing in materialism or naturalism or in determinism as well, that doesn't rule it out. So.
You're never going to say that? Is that what I should say?
That's what you're going to say. That's what you're going to say.
All right. So that's the end of the video and end of my critique. So this is the first time I ever did a critique, review, and hopefully it went well. So I guess with that, I will end the broadcast, and thanks for watching. Bye now.